It was a Tuesday, just another Tuesday. The moon hung in the sky like a forgotten coin, pale and familiar. We never really looked at it. Not really, it was just there. A silent guardian in the velvet blackness of space. A constant companion to our small blue world. Children slept soundly in their beds, dreaming of monsters under their beds, never once thinking to look up at the real one. The moon was a comfort. A predictable, lifeless rock that dictated our tides and nothing more. We trusted it. We wrote songs about it, painted its likeness, and even walked upon its dusty surface, leaving our footprints as a mark of our brief intrusion. It was ours, or so we foolishly believed. The night air was still, too still. A strange quiet had fallen over the cities and the countryside alike. The usual chorus of crickets had ceased their chirping. The distant hum of traffic seemed muffled, as if absorbed by the dense, waiting darkness. People tossed and turned in their sleep, a collective, unspoken anxiety creeping into their dreams. They dreamt of falling. They dreamt of drowning in an endless, inky ocean under a sky with no stars. It was a subtle disturbance, a ripple in the calm pond of our collective consciousness, a feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with the world, a deep primal instinct that we had long forgotten how to listen to. The universe was holding its breath. That silent watcher, that old pockmarked friend, had been observing us for eons. It had seen empires rise and fall like the turning of a page. It had witnessed the birth of our species, our first fires, our first wars, our first prayers to the heavens. It saw everything. We were like ants in a glass jar, scurrying about our busy lives, completely unaware of the immense, patient gaze fixed upon us from above. We looked to the stars for answers, for signs of life, but we never considered the life that had been staring back at us from our own cosmic backyard. We were so busy looking out that we never thought to look right next door. The moon kept its secrets locked away behind a face of cold, dead stone. It was the perfect disguise. It had been sleeping, or perhaps just pretending to sleep, for longer than our minds could possibly comprehend. Its slumber was so deep, so absolute, that it became a law of nature, an undisputed fact of our reality. The moon is a rock, the moon is inanimate, the moon is safe. These were the lies we told ourselves, the lullabies we sang to keep the cosmic dread at bay. But on this particular Tuesday, the lullaby was about to end. The dream was about to turn into a nightmare from which there would be no waking. The first sign was missed by most. It was a flicker, a slight, almost imperceptible pulse of light from the crater we called Tycho. An amateur astronomer in Argentina, sipping his late-night coffee, was the first to see it. He rubbed his eyes, convinced it was a trick of the light or a flaw in his telescope's lens. He logged it as an anomaly, a curious footnote in a quiet night of stargazing. He did not scream. He did not call the authorities. How could he? How do you report that you saw the moon blink? The very idea was insane, a thought that belonged in a madhouse, not a scientific journal. He went to bed feeling uneasy. The image of that soft alien light burned into his mind. But then it happened again. This time it was not a flicker. It was a shift, a slow, deliberate movement. The great dark plains of the Mare Imbrium, the Sea of Rains, seemed to ripple. It was like a muscle twitching beneath ancient skin. Satellites and observatories across the globe began to register the impossible. Geologists saw their seismographs, meant to measure the Earth's tremors, go wild with data coming from the sky. The moon was not just reflecting light, it was generating it. A low, deep hum below the range of human hearing began to emanate from the celestial body, a sound that resonated not in the ears, but in the bones. Panic is a virus. It started with frantic calls between scientific institutions, the hushed, terrified whispers of people who understood the data. Then came the leaks. A grainy video from a NASA feed appeared online, showing the moon's surface undulating, breathing. At first, it was dismissed as a hoax, another clever fake meant to scare people. But the evidence kept mounting. News anchors, their faces pale with a mixture of fear and disbelief, began reporting on the unusual lunar activity. They used careful words. They tried to sound calm, but the terror in their eyes was unmistakable. The world was waking up to a truth it was not ready for. The internet exploded. Every screen, every phone became a window to the unfolding horror. People poured out into the streets, their necks craned upwards, staring at the familiar orb that had suddenly become a source of ultimate terror. They were no longer looking at a rock, they were looking at a thing, an entity. Something was alive up there, and it was waking from a long, long sleep. Disbelief gave way to a raw, primal fear, the kind our ancestors felt when they looked into the dark and saw eyes staring back. The moon, our moon, was no longer a symbol of romance and mystery. It was a monster at our doorstep. The earth responded as if to a foreign body. The tides, once so predictable, became monstrous. The oceans pulled away from the coastlines in a great sickening gasp, only to return as towering walls of water that consumed entire cities without warning. The gravitational lock we had taken for granted was broken. Coastal communities that had existed for centuries were erased from the map in a matter of hours, their lights extinguished by the churning, angry sea. The planet itself seemed to be groaning in protest, its delicate balance shattered by the awakening of its ancient companion. This was not a natural disaster, it was a rejection. The weather became a chaotic storm of extremes. Blizzards raged under tropical suns, deserts were drowned in biblical deluges. The sky, once a familiar blue, was stained with sickly, shifting colours of purple and green, an atmospheric aurora caused by the strange energies radiating from the moon. Animals more attuned to the planet's distress went mad. Birds flew into buildings, whales beached themselves by the thousand, and predators stalked through suburban streets, their instincts haywire. The rational, ordered world we had built for ourselves was dissolving into a primal soup of chaos and fear, a world governed by the whims of a waking God. Humanity fractured, the thin veneer of civilization cracked and then shattered completely. Some prayed, turning to old gods and new prophets who claimed to have the answers. They held vigils on hilltops, chanting and pleading with the eye in the sky. Others rioted, seeing the end of all things as a license for their darkest impulses. Governments and armies were useless. What can you fire at the moon? How do you fight gravity? All our power, all our technology, all our history meant nothing in the face of this cosmic reality. We were small, fragile creatures, and we had just been reminded of our place in the universe. The emotional toll was the most devastating. A collective madness, a lunar hysteria swept across the globe. People were haunted by shared nightmares, visions of immense, shadowy forms moving just beyond the veil of reality. The constant, terrifying presence of the living moon in the sky, now visibly closer, was a relentless psychological assault. It was a constant reminder of our own insignificance and the terrifying, unknown nature of the cosmos. We were not alone in the universe, and this revelation brought not joy or wonder, but a soul-crushing dread that extinguished all hope. The silence of space was not empty, it was just listening. In the final hours, as the moon filled the sky, its craters twisting into a semblance of a vast unblinking eye, a new phenomenon began. It was not a light or a movement, it was a broadcast, a signal. Not of language, but of pure raw thought beamed directly into the mind of every living human. It was a wave of information, of memories that were not our own. We saw the birth of galaxies. We witnessed stars dying in silent, screaming explosions. We felt the cold, patient existence of a consciousness that measured its life in the decay of nebulae and the slow dance of gravity. It was the moon's dream, and we were now a part of it. This was not an invasion. It was not an attack. It was something far more terrifying. The moon was not waking up to destroy us. It was waking up because it was time. Time for what we could not comprehend. The thoughts it shared were not hostile, but they were utterly alien, devoid of anything we would call emotion. We were simply a detail, a momentary point of interest in a consciousness that spanned geologic time. Our entire history, our loves, our wars, our art, was less than a single fleeting thought to this ancient being. The ultimate horror was not that it hated us, but that it did not care about us at all. The final revelation was the most haunting. The moon was not the only one. The signal it sent out, this cosmic awakening, was an answer. It was responding to a call. In the shared dream, we could feel them. Other watchers, other sleepers, hiding in the dark corners of our own solar system. lurking in the rings of Saturn, buried beneath the ice of Europa, sleeping in the red dust of Mars. They were all stirring now, awakened by the song of their sibling. Our sky had been a cradle of monsters, and we had been the ones sound asleep the entire time. The story does not end. It simply stops. The moon fills the sky, a vast, living world on our horizon. The broadcast of its thoughts continues, a relentless stream of cosmic knowledge that is slowly erasing who we are, overwriting our memories with its own. Humanity is no longer the protagonist of its own story. We are merely the audience for the final act, a spectacle that began billions of years before we were born. The moon is awake, and it is singing to its brothers and sisters. And somewhere, in the deep, cold abyss of space, they are beginning to sing back. The performance is about to begin.